Buongiorno! Sometimes the best recipes come from a little inspiration from our vegetable patch and from whatever we've got in our fridge. I will be using, of course, again chard and also spinach. I will be using a white onion and a couple of cloves of garlic. Also, I've got here a little pork, and this is I think it's leg, it's a little part of a leg. This weighs about 400 grams, but I think I will be using about 300. And I will be deglazing everything with a little dry white wine. This is a third of a glass. And on the cheese front, I will be using some Parmesan cheese, but also you can use pecorino or any cheese you like. You can use cheddar, Edam, Gouda, whatever you like. And also I will be using a little bowl of fresh mozzarella. These are breadcrumbs. I'm not sure if I will be using them or not, depending on the liquidity level of my mix. So I will decide as and when, but obviously I will share that with you. A couple of eggs, and one is going to be for the mix, and one is going to be where I'll be using the egg wash to make my parcel look good, because actually I will be using some puff pastry. I've got it here. This weighs, I think it's 320 grams, and that will be towards the end of the recipe. And I've got some fresh herbs. These are parsley and a little basil, which I've picked from the garden earlier. These are olives that I keep in olive oil, and I will also be using some dried tomatoes. I've topped them up earlier today. And my last ingredient, hopefully it's the last ingredient, is some nutmeg, olive oil, salt and pepper. So I'll make a start. If I've forgotten anything, I'll tell you in a little while as and when I use it, but let's make a start. This is a recipe where I want to enhance the flavor of summer, and I will be chopping my ingredients very finely. So I'll start with the onion, but here are my 2 cloves of garlic, and just like I've done with the onion, this time instead of crushing them, I will actually be slicing them in little pieces, just like this. I'm ensuring I got a big enough frying pan, and I'll put a little olive oil at the base first, followed by my garlic and my onion. And I'll place this on the hob on a medium to high temperature initially until it starts sizzling, and then I'll turn it down and I'll wait until the onion has softened up. And I move to the pork, and I can see actually that there is quite a little bit of the cortica or fat, whatever it's called, skin. So by the time actually I remove this, I will have most probably just the right quantity. Also, you will have spotted that I've got here a plastic board. I always do that when I chop pork or any poultry, because clearly they are a little bit more dangerous as far as meat goes, rather than using the wooden chopping board, as it tends to absorb more liquid. So like this is considerably safer. So what shall we do with the pork? I'm going to be cutting this into little cubes. So I'll go and make some slices first. Of course, this is a joint of pork, but you can use any pork. You can also use sausages if you like, or pork mince. This is very, very lean, and it's from the leg of the pork. But as I said, you can use any cut. But as it will be going inside my little puff pastry parcels, just like I've done with the onion, I'm making sure that I do not cut it too big. So I will make about 1 centimeter cubes pieces. Also, this will be cooking a little while, and just like any meat, when it cooks, it will shrink a little. 4 minutes in, and my onion is looking beautiful, and actually it's the perfect time now to add my pork. So in it goes. And I'll mix this in, and I'll leave it to now sizzle, still same temperature, medium high. Actually I've turned it down a little, number 6 or even number 5, for about 4-5 minutes until I've browned up all over. In the meantime, I'll deal with my greens. They are here, and I've actually thoroughly washed them. Always important, even if they are from your own garden, because you could have flies or little bugs in them, and also there is a bit of sometimes earth attached to them. Now I have noticed that some of these actually is growth which has taken place in the last couple of weeks as I've been picking and eating it, and the stems are really, really tender, so I'm not going to bother removing the stems, except this one here, which is a little bit gone to seed. So that is most probably the only one I will remove. And with the rest, just like I've done in the other episodes, I'll just chop it roughly like this, about a couple of inches, and I'll mix the stems and the leaves together, and this will be ready to be added after I have deglazed the pork. In the meantime, my pork is doing really well, but can you see, look, there is a little bit of water which is being released by the pork, and I don't want that. I want it to all gone, so I'm going to turn the temperature up on high now, and I'll wait until that goes fast. And within a couple of minutes, the bottom of my pan is bone dry, and you can see also that all of the pork is pretty much cooked, and now is the time to add my dry white wine. A splash of white wine here helps lift absolutely everything, especially when I'm cooking leafy greens and pork together. It actually brings a lot of brightness to the dish. And do not worry, by the way, the alcohol will evaporate within a couple of minutes and you will not be able to taste the wine. It just adds a bit of elegance behind the scenes. Absolutely beautiful. So the smell of alcohol has completely gone, and if you look, I've got this beautiful cream underneath now, and that is perfect timing for my chard and spinach to go in. So I will add them all on top like this, and then I will make sure that I'll put the lid on, and I will now leave them to gently cook for about 7 or 8 minutes until the chard and the spinach has reduced in volume, and then I'll take them out and we'll leave them to cool down. So I'll see you in about 7 to 8 minutes. And as predicted, 7 to 8 minutes, and that is enough, is perfect. For the last 3 minutes, by the way, I removed the lid as I don't want any liquid, or as little as possible, and all of my vegetables have shrunk considerably. So before I can carry on though, I need this to cool down slightly. So the first thing I'll do is to move it into a glass bowl, as it will be easier for me to mix it later. And I will be adding an egg next, but it's too hot at the moment. I will end up partly cooking the egg. So I will leave it here for 5 minutes, and can you see there is a little bit of the stock in there? I will make sure that that doesn't go in. So 5 minutes, see you then. So my mixture has cooled down enough for me to safely add more ingredients, and I'll start with a little nutmeg. I'm actually adding about 1/4 of a bowl. If I show you, this is the size I'm referring to, so about 1/4 of that. Also, you can buy nutmeg which is already grated, and if you're not too keen, you don't have to add it, you can skip it, but I absolutely love it. So this is the Parmigiano Reggiano, so I will add 1, 2, 3 and 4 full dessert spoons. I will leave the breadcrumbs for last if I need them. So I mentioned parsley earlier, so I'm going to be very generous, and I'll add it all, a good handful. And also I've got here some basil, here more parsley, and with the basil though I will limit myself to the leaves. Perfect. Today I'm going to be using some green olives, and here I'll pinch also a few sun-dried tomatoes. Quantity is entirely up to you really, but I think I will go for 4 pieces of sun-dried tomatoes and maybe 10 to 15 olives. These are small olives, by the way, so 10 to 15 is plenty. Perfect. But before everything goes in, I'll just chop them in smaller pieces. As I mentioned before, I don't want my ingredients to be too big, as they will be going into little parcels. And I'll chop the olives in half, just like this. And they are done, so I'll bring in my mix over here, and I will just add everything in, including any of the olive oil which has been released by the olives, of course. Summer, it's a lovely time of the year, but don't fly get on your nerves. There is one fly, I don't know how I managed to get in as we go blind, but it's driving me mad. So I've added the egg. I have added this last, mostly because I want to make sure that everything is totally cooled down. So I'm not checking the consistency to see if I need to add any breadcrumbs. And as I don't want to be too vague about it, but depending on what sort of leafy vegetables you use, they could release more water or less water. And of course, the reason why I don't want this to be too wet is because I will be using the puff pastry to make my little parcels, and the danger is that it gets too soggy if this is too wet. However, looking at it, I don't think I'll need any breadcrumbs. It looks quite okay. So if you make this recipe, you will have to judge it. If it's too liquidy, too wet, just add maybe half a teaspoon of breadcrumbs and then have a look. If you don't need it, don't put any. That's perfect. I will not be putting any today. With my mozzarella, by the way, I'll chop it into 6 pieces like this, and then I'll see, I might need another one, but if I do, obviously I'll open a new one. And here is my puff pastry. By the way, do ensure that you keep it in the fridge, especially in the summer. Today is very warm here, about 27 degrees. If you leave it out to get to room temperature, it will be very difficult for you to work. So the first thing I want to do actually is to remove as much as I can. I think, see, even here it's a little bit stuck. I'm not too worried because I will be needing some later, but open it as much as you can. And I will now need to make some shapes for my little parcel. So I'll do two types. I'll do some little rectangular pockets in terms of shapes, but also I will do some round ones. I've got here a little dish which measures 10 centimeters in diameter. So I'll start with that first, and I will do one over here, and I'll just press it down, and let's have a look to see if it comes off. Yeah, it's working. And I'll make sure that I'll take this off before I remove my dish. I'm gonna get a knife over here to finish the job. And then here it is. Here's one little circle. I'll move it over here out of the way, and I'll do another one over here, this size. In terms of measurement, by the way, this is 34 centimeters in length and 24 centimeters in width, so that you've got an idea if you want to replicate my recipe entirely. So I'll do another one over here. That's pretty good. Let's have a look to see if it comes off easily. That's perfect. Now let's make some rectangles next. So I'll cut this straight over here with my knife. I got my tape measure. Now it's a little bit sad, but I want to make sure that they come to size. So I'll do it about 18 centimeters this way from here to here, and then I'll go in the middle over here, and I'll do another cut over here, which is about 14 centimeters. That's perfect. So I've got 4 pieces, 4 shapes. Well, 4 different, 2 different shapes, but 4 pieces. That's perfect. Now with the remainder, I am going to now mix it together, just like you were doing with dough, but not as vigorously, as this is not pasta. And I'll roll it, and I'll make another shape, and then I'll show you what I'll do with the leftover. And to roll it, by the way, I've placed a little olive oil. I'm going to add a little bit more at the bottom of the same paper it came with, and then I will, oops, where are you going? I will apply it there, and then I'll put some oil also on my rolling pin, and I will only go one direction until I get the same thickness that it came in when I opened the packet. And I think it's pretty much done. So that will give me the opportunity to make at the very least another one of the round ones. That's perfect. With the remainder, I'm making a few little strings so that I can use them for decorative purposes. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes when I can put the parcels together. And that is when the excitement part starts. So I will apply a little olive oil on some baking paper, which is also inside an oven tray, and I'll spread it evenly across the base using a little brush. This is to ensure that the pastry doesn't get attached to it. And I'll start by making the first one, and I'll do them one by one so I don't run into trouble. So I'll do a rectangular one. By the way, I've put a little pinch of salt in my mix so that I don't forget. So I just realized that I hadn't done that. So I will be very careful not to put too much, otherwise it will not close properly. So just also ensure that you've got a good combination of ingredients there, and try to avoid bringing in any liquid. So just enough to give you enough scope for you to close it. So I'll make a little well, and I will now add my mozzarella in. And the very good thing about puff pastry is that actually it does flex quite nicely without breaking. So if you're careful and you're gentle, you will see that you can play with it. So I'm going to press this down at the same time, and I will start sealing the edges using my fingers first, like this. And to finish the job, you can go along either with a fork or with a knife. I'm going with a knife today, as I will be cutting the excess off anyway, so that I get a proper seal. And the puff pastry obviously will puff when it's in the oven, so it will grow quite a bit. So that's good. And then if you want to take care of presentation, just go along the edges and just chop the excess which is uneven, and that will give you a beautiful result at the end. That's one. I'll just close it here. I notice that it's exactly open, and I'll do this side also, and over here, so I've got a nice square edge. I'll move into a round one next and see how that goes. I'm happy that that has worked quite well. So same again really, but I will have less space for my filling, so I'm going to be a little bit more mean, but I want to make sure that I get a good mixture of ingredients. I think it's enough. And of course my mozzarella here is a little bit too big, so we'll definitely not need a second one. So it goes in there, and that's lovely. And then I'll just stretch it slightly, and then I'll bend it. And this is called calzoncino, by the way. Calzone is a word for the pizza which is folded in half. Calzoncino is like a small pizza. And you can see what I've done. It's perfect. Just push it on the top, and this turns into a little half moon. But I'm not going to bother doing anything with the knife rather than just compacting it, because it's perfectly round. So I'll do the others, and then I'll show you what to do with the egg wash, and then they'll be ready to go in the oven. And here they are. I've completed them all. By the way, I go into trouble with one of them, this one here. I go a little bit greedy with the filling, and as I was bending it over, it split. So don't panic. I just put a little bit more of the pastry which I had left over, and I patched it up. It'll be interesting to see what it ends up to be like at the end, but I'm sure that will be fine. So the next job is to, as I mentioned before, to do a little bit of decorations, and I got a little left here, so I'll just turn it so that I make a little plait, I suppose, and then I'll chop it and I'll put it on top of the square ones. As I mentioned, nothing too fancy, but I think once it's baked it will look quite good, as it will glow along everything else. So one here and one here, and I'll use a little fork here, no, actually knife, and I'll just blend it in with the rest of the pastry without damaging it. I cannot get to it though. That's one side, and here is another side. So ready for the egg wash next. So here is egg number 2, and the first thing to do is to just remove the white. So I'll break it inside this glass over here. So that's done, 1 and 2, and all I need is some of the yolk, really. Perfect, and that can go in here. This can go away, and I'll give this a gentle mix with my brush, and then very simply I will apply it on top of all of my little parcels. And I'll make sure that I'll go where the edges are, so that the egg will provide a little seal in case you should decide to open up, but also the egg wash will give a beautiful color to my little parcels once they're cooked. So I'll go on top of these, and then I'll be ready to go in the oven. I really like recipes like this with puff pastries, because actually by the time they come out they will look absolutely stunning, and they're ready to go in the oven. Temperature 200 degrees, fan assisted, conventional oven up by 20 to 220, and I'll put them in for about 20 to 25 minutes. I'll check them after 20 minutes, before that anyway, but 20 minutes should be enough. But I'll check them, and then I'll let you know how long they were in for. And they should be golden in color, beautiful. Make sure you don't burn them, and then they will be ready. So I'll see you in about 20 to 25 minutes. By the way, as I started tidying up, it crossed my mind that I need to share with you the fact that actually I've made far more than what I need for the quantity of puff pastry I've used. So there is enough here for 2 rolls of puff pastries. So what I'll do with mine, I'll put it in the freezer, and then I will defrost it one day, and that will be an excellent base for a pasta sauce. So I will add some tomato passata, and then that will be perfect for pasta sauce. Or you can do the same, or you can eat it as it is, really, as a side, because it's perfectly okay. But in the notes and the description of this video, I will give you the exact quantities to make 1 roll of puff pastry, so there won't be as much as I've been illustrating during this video. So see you then in 20 minutes. And actually 20 minutes exactly, and they're ready, and here they are, looking absolutely beautiful, although they're very, very hot. And I did say to you earlier that the one I fixed is here. You can see that has been fixed, but it looks very presentable. So I'll wait a couple of minutes before I dig in and test one. And these ones, by the way, you can have them right now, although I would wait a few minutes because they're really hot. Warm are perfect, but also you can let them to cool down completely, put them in the fridge. You can have them the day after or the day after that, until meat would actually last 3 days maybe in the fridge. But also you can freeze them, and then you just defrost them at room temperature and you can eat them straight away. Picnics, ideal. I'll cut into one in a minute, but I wanted to just say something else. I have noticed that lots of you are watching my videos, and that's lovely to see the channel growing, and lots of you also commenting and liking my videos, which is great to see. But also lots of you are watching my videos but are not commenting or letting me know if you're enjoying them. I would really appreciate to interact with more people, because actually that is why I do what I do. I do appreciate that my videos are a little bit longer than the average, but I don't cook to make a video. I cook because I cook, and I love cooking and sharing my passion with you guys. That's why often I go into more detail than other videos do. So I would appreciate some feedback. And would you like me to do something different? Very open to feedback as always. Let's cut into one, and I will leave the other ones to cool down though. I just wanted to show you what they look like on the inside. I'm opening the one which I had to patch up. And yeah, it's looking good. I'm not sure where the cheese is gone. So the cheese is here because actually has melted away. But let's have a look. Very hot. Oh. You know what? They're absolutely delicious. Maybe I could have been a little bit more generous with salt, which I can add it now, but they are lovely. So a little bit more salt at the end would have been helpful. They're delicious. They're really hot, and I'm not paying the price. Make them and see how you get on, and let me know. Thank you for watching, and hopefully enjoy the series, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you. Bye.